Imagine a world trembling at the footsteps of a man whose very name would echo across continents, whose signature would redraw the lines of empires. That man was Suleiman, known in his own time and for centuries since as Suleiman the Magnificent. His story is no mere tale of kings and conquests. It is a storm that swept across history, leaving the world forever changed. Our journey begins on the rugged shores of the Black Sea, in the bustling port city of Trebizond, on a cold November day in 1494. Born beneath a sky heavy with the promise of destiny, Suleiman entered the world as the son of Prince Selim, a man as fierce as the winds that howled through the city's narrow streets. Selim, the son of Sultan Bayezid II, would become known as Selim the Grim, and his legacy, a blend of brilliance and brutality, would cast both light and shadow over young Suleiman's life. Suleiman's mother, Hafsa Hatun, was herself a woman of legend. A Crimean Tatar princess, she carried in her veins the wild fire of Genghis Khan, her ancestry a living thread woven through centuries of conquest. From this union, a child was born, one who would rise above the storm of palace intrigue and the deadly rivalries of Ottoman succession. The palace of Suleiman's youth was no cradle of comfort. Brothers and sisters awoke each day aware that the crown's shadow could be cloaked in blood. Selim's ascent to the throne was marked by the ruthless elimination of rivals, a tradition as old as the House of Osman itself. From this cauldron of danger, Suleiman emerged, scarred, vigilant, and unbreakable. But there was more to him than steel and strategy. In the quiet corners of the palace, Suleiman devoured books on philosophy and faith, his mind as sharp as the scimitars that would one day carry his armies across continents. Even as a boy, he stood tall and lean, his aquiline nose and pale complexion a testament to his diverse bloodline. By the time age had graced his beard with silver, he bore the weight of empire with a dignity that seemed carved from the very stones of Constantinople. The Ottomans themselves were a force of nature. Once a patchwork of warring tribes, they had, by the time of Suleiman's birth, forged a realm that stretched from the green hills of the Balkans to the sun-baked deserts of Anatolia. In 1453, the city of Constantinople had fallen to their banners, a thunderclap heard round the world. The Ottoman tide seemed unstoppable, and it was in this crucible of destiny that Suleiman was forged. As a child, Suleiman learned the arts of war and wisdom alike. He thrived under the stern tutelage of his father, mastering languages and music, mathematics and swordplay. Like all sons of the sultans, he was also trained in the humble craft of goldsmithing, a reminder that even emperors must understand the value of labor and creation. His first taste of power came early. At just 15, he was named governor of a remote border province, tasked with holding the empire's flanks against enemies known and unknown. He faced jealous uncles and suspicious cousins. In the Ottoman world, ambition was as deadly as poison. When his father Selim seized the throne, a tide of blood swept through the royal house. Suleiman miraculously survived. In 1520, as the Ottoman Empire stood at its zenith, Selim's reign ended as abruptly as a candle snuffed by a midnight wind. Suleiman, now the heir, entered Constantinople with the heavy knowledge that he might be walking into a trap. But fortune favored the bold. The Janissaries, the empire's elite warriors, kingmakers in their own right, rallied to his side. Power transferred not with a scream, but with the silent, trembling awe of a world about to change. Suleiman's first acts as Sultan were a balm to wounds left by his father's tyranny. He released the innocent from prison. He rewarded those who had supported him. He showed mercy where others might have shown malice. To many, it was as if the morning dew had refreshed a parched and fearful land. Yet the mantle of empire is heavy. Rebellion flickered in distant Egypt, orchestrated by ambitious governors. Suleiman snuffed it out with the same relentless will that would soon terrify Europe. The eyes of the Sultan turned west to Hungary, where the murder of a Turkish envoy became the spark for war. His armies swept forward, thunder and lightning personified, taking Belgrade after a siege that rattled the walls of Christendom. Europe shuddered. The Christian bastion of Rhodes fell next, its defenders overwhelmed after months of bombardment. But Suleiman, ever the complex soul, showed leniency to the conquered, sparing their lives and granting them years of tax relief. Such mercy, rare in those days, earned him as much awe as his battlefield triumphs. Victory was a crown heavy with thorns. Power bred envy, and at his side rose Ibrahim, a Greek slave whose brilliance and loyalty earned him the title of Grand Vizier. Together they quelled uprisings in Egypt. And at home, reordering administration with a precision that would echo down the ages. Yet, even the closest friendships can be split by the blade of suspicion. The Sultan's strength radiated beyond the battlefield. His justice became legendary, a beacon in a world often ruled by whim. Suleiman's laws protected even the humblest of his subjects, granting the powerless a voice against the mighty. Europeans marveled at the fairness of his courts, where religion and class mattered less than the truth. The empire was vast, yes, but under Suleiman it was also just. Away from war and governance, Suleiman's heart found its equal in Roxolana, a woman whose journey from captive to queen rivaled the wildest of tales. Their love, fiery and exclusive, was a defiance of tradition, a union that saw Suleiman forsake the harem for monogamy. Roxolana's wit and charm earned her a place not only in his heart, but at the center of power, though not without controversy. The court simmered with intrigue, and their love story was written in both longing glances and political maneuverings. But love, like power, carries a price. Rivalries among his sons, stoked by mothers and ministers alike, would one day threaten to tear the empire apart. Succession. Struggles were not just matters of inheritance, they were struggles for the soul of an empire. The drums of war rolled on. The Sultan's gaze fixed next upon Vienna, the gateway to the heart of Europe. With an army numbering in the hundreds of thousands, Suleiman pressed the frontiers of Christendom to their breaking point. The siege of Vienna, though ultimately unsuccessful, sent shivers through the courts of Europe. It was a clash of titans, a test of will and endurance, and though the Sultan withdrew, his legend grew ever larger, invincible yet merciful in retreat. In the east, the Persian Safavids beckoned. For years, their borderland simmered with conflict, a dance of armies and ambition. Suleiman's campaigns were relentless. Baghdad fell after a grueling march, and with it, the Sultan gained the spiritual prestige of the Abbasid legacy. Yet even in victory, the shadows of court intrigue lengthened. Grand Vizier Ibrahim, whose rise had matched Icarus, fell to the same fate. His execution, secret, swift, and final, was a reminder that no mortal could stand equal to the Sultan for long. The Mediterranean became Suleiman's next stage. His navy, led by the legendary Barbarossa, painted the sea red and gold with Ottoman banners, shattering the illusion of Christian supremacy on the waves. Venice, once a proud maritime power, was humbled. Entire islands fell, and Christian prisoners were led away in chains. The Holy League, a desperate alliance of popes and princes, tried and failed to stem the tide. Yet even as Suleiman's star blazed, the world changed. Old allies became unreliable. France, torn between ambition and fear, wavered. Alliances shifted like sand. Campaigns in Italy and Hungary tested the mettle of both friend and foe, and though not every plan bore fruit, the Sultan's drive never faltered. As the years wore on, the empire grew, but so too did the storm within Suleiman's own house. The question of succession, always a bloody riddle, reached a fever pitch. Mustafa, his eldest son and a hero to the people, was executed on the suspicion of treachery, a wound that would never fully heal. The people mourned, whispering of greatness lost, even as another son, Bayezid, rebelled and met his own tragic end. Age and sorrow crept upon the Sultan's shoulders. Inflation ate at the empire's wealth, discontent simmered among the people, and family betrayals left scars deeper than any sword. Yet even as the years sapped his strength, Suleiman's resolve did not waver. In his final days, racked by illness, he led one last campaign into Hungary, a last defiant roar from the lion of the Ottoman world. He died as he had lived, on the front lines, surrounded by the thunder of cannon and the promise of glory. Suleiman's life was an odyssey of ambition and love, of cruelty and compassion, of vision and vigilance. He left behind a realm that spanned continents, a tapestry of peoples and faiths held together by the iron of his will and the golden touch of his justice. Some say Suleiman was magnificent. Others claim his fortune was merely the weakness of his foes. But none can deny the scale of his vision, the audacity of his conquests, and the lasting impact of his reign. He was more than a sultan. He was the measure by which all rulers of his age were judged. So I ask you, listener, does greatness flow from the actions of a single man, or does history create its own giants from the chaos of the world? Was Suleiman truly magnificent, or merely a man who seized the moment fortune offered? The answer, perhaps, lies not in the chronicles of power, but in the legacy that endures, cast in stone, sung in story, and whispered through the corridors of time. Share your thoughts below. Was Suleiman rightly called the Magnificent, or was his brilliance only the reflection of a world waiting for someone to take the reins? Your voice, like his, becomes part of the story. Thank you for joining me on this epic journey through an age of empire, love, and legend.